My uncle let my dad get killed. I was really young when my dad died, but I remember the aftermath. He and my uncle had been out drinking and they got into a fight with the wrong guys. My dad got pummeled and died of internal bleeding. Uncle Rich, on the other hand, didn't have a single injury. He said there was nothing he could have done. We all knew he was lying. Rich came to our house a few days after Dad's funeral. He was drunk. He yelled at my mom. She called him a coward for leaving my dad to die. He got violent. He beat her into submission and told her that my dad's death was her fault, claiming she had made him weak. We moved away after that. I didn't talk to that side of the family for many years, but I always remembered that night. When I turned 18, I got back in touch with Uncle Rich. He hadn't changed. He was still full of himself, projecting so much confidence to compensate for how spineless he was, but I humored him and talked about what he liked to talk about. He warmed up to me. That's when I proposed the camping trip. He loved the idea because he thought spending time in the wilderness was manly. We made plans to hike a trail that went through some isolated mountainous terrain upstate. The plan was set. We took my car, but he insisted on driving. On the way out of the city, we realized that we needed to stop to fill up on gas. The neighborhood we stopped in was one of the more dangerous areas of the city, but it would just be a pit stop. I told him I would buy the gas, and I encouraged him to run over to the deli down the block to pick up a few sandwiches. As I filled up the tank, I thought about that night all those years ago when I came out of my room and saw my mom collapsed on the floor. She was bruised and bleeding, tears streaming down her face. I decided to grab a coffee from the convenience store. On my way there, I noticed two men rounding the corner. They walked toward me and quickly pulled out knives. They demanded my money. I complied, pulling out my wallet. I happened to look to the side, and I saw Rich coming back from the deli. He froze in place when he saw what was happening. A few seconds later, he ran to the car. He promptly started it and peeled out of the parking lot. That bastard. Then the men lowered their knives. I paid them and thanked them for helping me put on that show and for cutting the brakes on the car while Rich was away. Rich died when the car collided with a truck. I made sure it looked like an accident. In truth, I didn't kill him. What really killed Rich was his own cowardice. Our next story is, the manager that made me want to leave my job is the best thing that happened to me. I started working at my current company almost a year ago. Initially, I aimed for a senior position, but since my skills weren't quite there yet, I took on a junior role instead. The office environment was pretty great overall, and everyone was supportive, except for my manager. From day one to the end of my probation, he was relentless with criticism and rarely showed any appreciation for my efforts or accomplishments. Despite mentioning in my interview that I was eager to learn new skills, they put me on a task that I had to pick up from scratch. My manager made this transition as tough as possible. By the end of my probation, I was ready to quit. The company wasn't offering me the salary I wanted, and just the thought of working with that manager again made me miserable. But then, they agreed to a salary package I was happy with. I also had a meeting with management to discuss my manager, and the news spread quickly among the team. Things started to change. My manager gradually became more relaxed with me. He started cracking jokes and wasn't as strict about deadlines unless they were urgent. I still held some resentment, though. I was going through a rough time in my life, and the last thing I needed was extra pressure. As the year went on, many of the older team members left, and we got a bunch of new hires. By then, my manager and I had developed a solid professional relationship. I began to appreciate him and the changes he made. He was more supportive, didn't pressure the newcomers, and recognized everyone's hard work. So, how did he become the best thing that ever happened to me? Well, during my annual salary review, he went out of his way to help me. He had several meetings with me, fought for a better salary package when management was reluctant, and even stood up for me when I was ready to quit due to feeling undervalued. Yes, the same manager who had criticized my performance was now advocating for me in front of management, offering support for time off, and being understanding about my needs. He even joked about his transformation, saying some people still see him as a villain, but he was fine with that. If I ever move into management, I hope to be like him, a dedicated leader who's willing to grow and support their team. He taught me the true value of good leadership. Thanks for sticking around for the story, and sorry if it got a bit long. Appreciate you all for listening.
Our next story is, am I in the wrong for blocking my family? I, a 19-year-old trans female, blocked my family for making fun of me after I attempted suicide. I grew up in the northeast of England and moved to the northwest for university. This move meant that seeing my friends from home required a lot of effort, and before I moved, I got into an unexpected relationship that caused many issues. The girl, who I'll refer to as A, was someone I met online. I had apps like Tinder on my phone, but I wasn't really looking for a relationship. I was seeking support with trans-related matters, like learning makeup. A was someone I trusted, especially since I used to be very closed off about being transgender. When we first met up, we really hit it off. It was the perfect first date, and we asked each other out. Fast forward a few months, and we were regularly together and intimate with each other. However, I felt uncomfortable with some things due to severe issues with my body. Sometimes, during intimate moments, I felt disgusting and like I wasn't in the right body, which made me want to stop. She didn't like this and often made me do things that made me uncomfortable. She ended up cheating on me while I was at university. I know it sounds irrational, but I didn't care that she was cheating. She was my first intimate partner, and I wanted our relationship to last. I thought I wasn't doing enough or that I needed to do more. We broke up after I finally mentioned that I knew about the cheating and wanted to know if it was because I wasn't enough or if I needed to do more. After the breakup, I felt lost and thought I had lost everything, which led to multiple suicide attempts within a week. My university placed me on a watch list after my friends reported the situation. This news eventually reached my family, with whom I've never been very close. They started making jokes about it and mocking me, which made everything I was going through even worse. Feeling like I had no one to turn to, I decided to block my family after talking to a friend. It's been 2 weeks since I made that decision, and I'm questioning whether it was the right choice, because, after all, they are my family. But why would they make jokes about someone they love? I'm just feeling lost.